Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Wrestling Diaries. I'm your host, Mitchell Roulin, and this is the podcast show for the average Joe, where we talk to people from the middle of society about the things they wrestle with and how they can overcome their adversities. And we hear these ordinary people with extraordinary ideas. Check us out on YouTube. Like, comment, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell for more content we release once a week on Wednesdays for the podcast show, and then sometimes Fridays or Saturdays for our other content. Also, check us out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Overcast, and many others where we are on the audio platforms to listen to our show. Today, I have for the first time ever in the studio, the first ever family member of a previous guest. Don't check your ears or eyes. This is a different Chris Washington, but related to the previous Chris Washington, Chris Washington Sr., ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for being on the show, sir. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm honored.
So I assume that you watched the show with your son, or listened to it rather, and tell me or tell everybody listening what you thought of his performance and ours or mine.
It was awesome, and that's what made me wanted to be a part of it, because it felt like home, and it wasn't script, and I know, knowing Chris, everything he was saying, it was genuine, and then you was asking some good questions, so I was like, hey, that's something I wouldn't mind being a part of.
Okay.
And the chemistry that you guys had, that was pretty cool.
Well, awesome, man. That makes us feel really good. Me and Matt are very, very flattered by that. So, Mr. Chris Washington, tell us a little bit about yourself. Now, Chris, on the last episode, or not the last episode, but the episode with your son, he was talking about how you are in the military. What's that all about?
About 20 years ago, I had this little voice in my head that said, join the military. I always wanted to join the military.
Now, which branch are you in?
I'm in the Army.
Okay, Army. Okay.
Yeah, I wanted to join. I really wanted to join the Air Force because I love the Air Force. I love aviation, but for some strange reason, sometimes some things you plan don't go exactly the way you plan. But the type of person I am, anything I set my heart to, and something that I said I want to do it, I don't care if I'm 100 or I'm gonna do it. So that was one of my things that was on my bucket list. And at the age of 32, believe it or not, I went and joined the military.
Okay. And how was your experience doing? Are you glad you did it? Are you still in the military, actually?
Actually, I'm still in the military, yeah. I'm in a medical unit out of in Tuscaloosa, 75th Cash. Well, now we're 75th Field Hospital.
Okay. Another thing that I thought was interesting that Chris was telling me about, you're a military guy, but you're also this very eccentric artiste. Like you paint and you do drawings and you write. So tell us about that, and where does that all come into your life? When did you start getting into, I guess, the more artistic side of your life?
I've always been artistic. I've always been acting as a child. My mom said, "You always acting up," But always
Nice.
always just had a different mindset of everybody else. I can be with my group of friends, and I would say some off the wall things, and they would be like, where do you get that from? But that's my makeup. So as I gotten older, well, let me back up. As a kid, I used to watch my older brothers draw, and I was like, I can do that. So I, just started mimicking and drawing, and I always had a love for art, but I always drew. But as I got older, maybe about 6 years ago, I heard the voice of God. He said, pick up the brush. I'm like, pick up the brush? I didn't even know how to hold a brush or a palette knife, but I heard that voice. So I had to be obedient, and I was collecting art, but I didn't know how to paint. I just tried it. And one day I had a piece that I collected. I went to the auction. I took it to my guys in Little House in Homewood, and they would look at it and they was like, okay, that's a good piece, but that's not going to retire you. So I started doing some stuff on my phone, and I would take some pictures of my artwork, and I would show it to him. He was like, who is that? I said, oh, that's mine. He said, I know, but who did it? I said, I did it. He said, let me see some more your original work. And I would show him some of my work. He would say, you ought to pick up the brush. So from that point on, I began to pick up the brush. Like I said, I'm more of a inspirational type artist. I mean, I can be commissioned to do a piece, but it's not going to be the same as far as like I'm always inspired. Once that inspiration hit me, I paint until the inspiration stopped. Once it stopped, I'm done. You know. But as far as like animation and cartoons, it's just always been inside. See, artwork is not what I do, it's who I am. So all the different pieces, like with the voiceovers, the writing skills, back in the day, I used to be a recording artist. I used to rap back in the day. So I never lost that. You know what I mean? You don't really lose that. It kind of mature, grow up, or go in a different direction, but it's still there. So I do poetry. Always been able to do poetry, but a lot of my stuff is spiritual. And I'm more concerned about doing something, saying something, giving something that would help somebody in some given way. That's what it's all about. Everything, even with the military, I get the opportunity to help not just my people, but people in general. Everywhere I go, soldiers, I'm in a position where I can groom soldiers, help soldiers, Man, you would not believe how much help is needed out there, especially with soldiers putting their life on the line, trying to have an everyday life, and also, trying to make sure your country is safe. Not just here, but think about it. We have to go all over the world, wherever there's a need or wherever they send us. That's where we have to be. And it's a lot on soldiers. So I bring more than just structure, but I'm bringing some form of deliverance. You understand what I'm saying? I'm always trying to give them a solid or a sound foundation, or show them, hey, there's always a way out. Even though it might be dark, you might be at the Red Sea, Pharaoh might be charging. You got a mountain on the left and a mountain on the right, but there's always a way out.
That's an analogy about Moses and the Egyptians, in case anybody's wondering.
Yeah, look beyond, look beyond your situation. Because when you get in a predicament like that, I love it, because that's when you get a chance to see the true power, the true power of God.
Have you ever gotten any, I guess, especially with being in the military, any like backlash for being like an artist person and having that kind of spiritual insight about stuff?
Believe it or not, God has a sense of humor too. So,
oh yeah, how so?
No matter who you are, no matter what your race, ethnic background, or whatever, when you get down or you get into a place where there's pain and you can't do anything for yourself, think about it. Even the rich people have to go to the doctor. So that sharp pain that might be in my side, I don't care. It doesn't matter your race. It doesn't matter your wealth, whether you're rich or poor. It doesn't matter your background or whatever. A pain is a pain. The only thing you're looking for is what? Some relief. And you really don't care where it comes from, or you don't care who it comes from. So that's when the opportunity is presented now, because people get an opportunity to see God at his true state. When you at a place where you can't, where can I turn? Even the first sergeant was coming to me and said, Washington, I need you to pray with me. We gotta pray, because it was hard. But they actually seen the manifestation of God's word through prayer. So it became a regular. So other people saw God on that level, but they was able to see God through myself. So it's never been hard, or it's never really been a hard case. It's just that there were different avenues that people took to get to that same spot, to where they realized, I need something bigger or something stronger than myself. So I never took any backlash. As a matter of fact, when I was in Iraq in 2005 and 2006, I was able to go to the Talia Air Force Base, and they sent me directly to the chapel. And I was able to minister to people, man. That was the most humbling experience I ever had in my life, because people from all different nationalities, we all spoke one language, and that was God. And to see those different people be affected by the word, by the word, and that's leading to something else, like you're saying with the wrestling diaries, is one thing I wrestle with, trying to stay committed and not to allow the enemy to attack my mind and say, you got to be perfect. See, over there, it was a confined space. And you had all the soldiers that knew me. Everybody knew me because I was always on the platform. Because anytime you're ministering, you're on the platform, and everybody like, okay, that's Sergeant White. So guess what? Even in the hot desert, being away from my family, I had to walk a very thin line. You understand what I'm saying? But that doesn't stop the enemy from coming at me and trying to attack me, But I have to say no. I have to shun the enemy. I have to put up those shields, And that's not always easy. So at that time, being in that desert place, in that secluded place like that, it's like my struggle was always the enemy always trying to tell me, okay, you're gonna mess up, and these people are going to see it, and then they're gonna shun away from God because you're supposed to be reflecting Him, and you're the only God that these people can see right now. That was kind of hard. So I had to stay to myself a whole lot. You know, that was rough. I had to stay to myself. But going back to the question that you asked me to close it out, it was like, it was so easy because over there, bullets and missiles and everything flying in, people look for some type of shelter. You know what I'm saying? Oh, it was easy for them to come to church. Or before we went out, yeah, or before we went out the FOB and went on a mission, hey, it wasn't guaranteed that you was coming back. So of course people wanted what? Some type of protection. Let's go to the man of God. Hey, will you pray for us before we go on the road? Or hey, a lot of you can get real religious.
I was about to say people end up that are like non-spiritual at all get super spiritual when there's danger afoot.
Yes. And that happened twice. One case, one particular time when it was a great storm, those sandstorm you see in The Mummy. Yeah.
Oh, you lived through one of those?
Yes.
Explain how that was.
Man, that was one of the freakiest thing I ever experienced in my life. It's like you look down the way, and all of a sudden it just like a blanket, like a tan color blanket, and it just coming, and it's just coming, and everything is getting dark, and I'm like, oh my God. My commander, he was like, hey Moses, he was real funny, very, yeah, very unreligious person that you would ever meet. He sweared every word, not every other word. He sweared every word, and he had no use for Jesus. And he was like, "Hey, hey Moses, you need to go out there, and
and
tell your God to, do something with this storm or whatever, because we was in tents, and those tents you can actually hear. They were like, you can actually hear him, and it seemed like they was going to, come up or whatever. So they was being funny. I said, okay. I got up. I went to the door. And I just rebuked, this is the God honest truth. I rebuked that sandstorm in the name of Jesus. Guess what happened? When you heard all that, then all of a sudden it got real calm and quiet. Everybody stopped and looked. The smiles dropped. I wish you could have seen their faces. The smile dropped. The heads dropped. They didn't say nothing. They just turned around. But from that point on, they knew that God was real. It wasn't so much of me, but they knew, okay, there is a higher power because that's not normal, you know. And from that point on, the guys would, commander would come. Hey man, let's get over Jesus on, Yeah, he was just goofy in a way, man.
Yeah.
But it was something.
It sounds like something. That sounds like a fantastic story there. Was Iraq one of the only tours that you did while, well, not while, but being in the military? Was that one of the tours that you did internationally, or the only tour rather?
Yeah, that's the only tour that
Did you
I.
make any friends over there in Iraq
Oh
that you still keep
man,
up with now?
I met people from Fiji. I didn't even know there was such Fiji.
I drink
People
their
from.
water.
I know, right? I met people from Barbados. I met people from just all over the world. Now, I really don't keep up with them, you know what I'm saying? But I did, we had a huge impact on each other's lives while we was out there, man. And just to see the difference in the mindset is awesome. But yeah, that was the only tour. I've been called up 2 more times, but I never really made it over. Actually, made it over. Never made it beyond the Mobe station.
I gotcha. Okay. So, going back to like your art stuff, what is it you do now as far as like with your art, with poetry or painting? You were telling me earlier about trying to get a studio started or something like that. Can we talk about that?
Right. Well, my studio that I'm working on, I'm setting the foundation at my house first, and I'm working in my studio, my gallery, everything is right now is in my house. But I'm planning on opening a studio for my animation.
Okay, tell us about the animation. What is that? What kind of animation?
Right now, I'm doing 2D animation. I use the Flash program or anime. Now it used to be Flash. I just love 2D animation. I have plenty of opportunity to learn 3D, but I've learned it's like whatever pick you, you know. So it's like 2D animation actually picked me. And when I tell you I love it, to make characters come to life, to give it life, man, it's awesome. So what I'm planning on doing is I want to be able to bridge a gap. That's my vision, and I wrote this down, and I shared this with my son years ago. I don't know if he remembered or not, but my goal is to take animation. Anybody can do animation, or anybody can do voiceover. Yeah, let me rephrase that. Anybody can do voiceover. So I want to get some of the younger generation and some of the elderly generation, and I want to bridge that gap, bring them together with animation. So since I'm doing the writing, guess what? All they have to do is do the reading. So now I want the elderly people to be able to value and understand the younger generation, but I want to be able to connect those two so where the younger people can get back to respect in our elderly people. But of course, at the same time, they're making money. So that's another part of this vision is I want to create something to whereas avenues to whereas the drugs money is not more enticing than doing something positive. And I want to make what I'm doing competitive. I want them to not just give them a sense of value and worth, but also give them some money because that at the end of the day, that's what this thing is about, Hey man, I can go and sell these drugs, whatever, or move this package for somebody. And they're taking a huge risk. Plus they're taking a chance on their life and killing somebody, with the drugs. But I mean, you think about it, it's about the money. They're not doing it for free. I give you $200 or $300.
I'm sorry, I just got a funny joke in my head. Like, what if there's like a charitable drug dealer? He's like, oh, I'm just passing out these bags of cocaine for free for everybody.
I know, right?
Anyways, yeah, it's about the money. I know what you're saying.
Right.
I'm sorry.
So now, once that cartoon, once it take off, I can pay these young people, but I want to give them some competitive wages, to just do voiceovers. Anybody can do voiceover. Now, the elderly people, you're going to give them something to do. Now they're able to depart something in the younger generation and still give the elderly people what? A sense of worth, a sense of value. Now they don't have to sit there and die off. You know what I'm saying? But at the same time, now they don't have to sit there and just wait on the program, somebody, the government to take care of them. They're making their own money and there's no struggle and they're doing something positive, something that they would love, just giving off wisdom. So now everybody is making wealth, but we're also making a connection and we're strengthening each other. You see what I'm saying? So that's my biggest goal. I want to be able to make that connection before I leave this planet. So I'm gonna have to have I've been looking at a couple of buildings, like the building I was telling you that's over here off of Morgan Road. They actually have some space, but there's a young man, he's a firefighter in Birmingham, and he has some property in Fairfield because Fairfield is coming back up. And right now the buildings are very affordable and Inslee is coming back up. I want to fight these fires because I used to be a firefighter for 6 years. I want to extinguish these fires. You got to go in the heart of that fire to extinguish that fire. So I want to go in some of these places, and put something there of some value and spread out. So that's one of my plans. And that's why I'm doing my artwork now, because my artwork would generate the finances that I need. I really don't want a lot of handout. And that's where Chris get his pride from, I don't need a handout. I'm not looking for a handout. I can use a hand up. I can use a hand, but I don't want a handout. So what God did for me, he gave me the gift to be able to generate wealth. So now, once I take that art money and generate that wealth, I can build my own studio the way I have it envisioned in my head. Then I can get somebody like Matt, who's behind the scene and good at what he does, you know what I mean? And bring him aboard and say, okay, Matt, do what you do. Because, man, Bessemer is so rich. Oh my God, Bessemer is so rich, but we're so spread it out. And we don't know. I don't know how long Matt been doing this. I don't know how long you've been doing this. But imagine when I first started doing my animation and my cartoon and my voiceovers and stuff. I guarantee you there's some things Matt can come in and show me and say, yes, sir. That's my name, Sir Chris the artist. So he'd be like, sir, you can do this, you can do that, you can do this, and you can do that. So guess what? Now that's going to make what I'm doing even more proficient. I'm not putting out, it has to be quality. And one of my major cartoon is, I know that's probably one of your questions is Kung Fu cockroaches.
Kung Fu, is that the actual working title?
That's the working title.
So let's hear about Kung Fu. First of all, before we get into Kung Fu cockroaches, I just gotta say, this guy's got so much energy. I feel like just listening to him talk, I've done like 20 burpees. And like another thing about you, Chris, is you're a very complex individual. Like everything you do, from what I've just listening to you speak about all this stuff, everything is a layer. There's layers to everything you do, right? It reminds me, I was telling Chris this story. I went to a French restaurant, or maybe I was telling you the story. I'm not sure if I did or not. But the guy was explaining, me and my girl at the time, having some food, and he was coming and explaining to me how this wasn't just a meal he was serving. This was life. This was connection. This was community. This was romance. This was spirit. This was heart. And there's just all these layers. And I was like, I thought I was just having a leg of lamb. I didn't know I was having all this. And that's you, man. You got all those layers. But anyways, Kung Fu cockroaches. Let's hear it.
All right. Actually, I'll tell you the story how it first started out. I was a kid. My mom, dad, same mom, same dad, had 9 kids. 9. All under the same roof, and we all always been tight knit. So my 2 oldest brothers, they was real silly anyway. And they used to do a lot of crazy things. And, like I said, I always had a vivid imagination. And we had a Ziploc bag. And it was something that was on the fridge. And he was like, man, if you put that on I can't remember what it was. I think it was a piece of cake or a cookie or something. He said, now, if you put it on the fridge, you better put a bag on it because a roach might get in it. And yeah, I did say a roach. So I was like, yeah. And from that point on, man, my mind began to visualize a roach struggling, trying to get in that bag and doing karate on that bag, And that's where it was actually birthed from. So as I got older, I never gotten away from that. It was just stored in the back of my mind. And I actually drew something, simulated with pretty much like the stick figures or whatever. And as time progressed, I came back to it. I picked it back up, Kung Fu Cockroach, because that's what I named it with the Ziploc bag. And I actually, once I began to learn animation, that was one of the first pieces that I said, well, let me do something, for this. I did a commercial. I did a Coke commercial, and it turned out pretty good. So I turned my attention to the Kung Fu Cockroach, but it was on a smaller scale. So once I put it together, and it turned out real good, and then all these ideas for the Kung Fu Cockroach, came to me. And once I began to put it together, I had no trouble at all as far as like material, because there's a lot of enemies that roaches have. I began to do my research, and once I seen all these bugs like your black widow spiders and a brown recluse, different type of spiders and insects that actually are enemies to the cockroach. So a lot of this stuff is really it's real because, like I said, I researched it. But then I saw where I can take those roaches and put something in them and just use it as an attention getter. Now I begin to give voice and character to it, and it morphed. Believe it or not, man, I had a vision of the roaches, and I just had this vision stuck in my head. And being an artist, sometimes you have to go outside of yourself. So there's a young guy, I say young guy, he's about my age. His name is Paul Wigglesworth, one of the best artists I ever met in my life. He draws so realistic, He's real good. He looked like Prince. Same height, same facial. I mean, look just like Prince. He's real good. Very detailed in what he do. I haven't seen him in years. Let me show you how awesome God is. I was just thinking, I was like, man, I would like to hook up with Paul so he can help me develop these roaches. Wouldn't you know, Paul showed up. Hooked up with Paul. I told him what I wanted, told him what I was doing. He was excited about it. I told him the colors of each roach. Sat there, he began to sketch, and did his color thing. They was perfect. I mean,
before you leave tonight, I've got to see a picture of this or something. Matt, do you want to, when he makes this stuff, you want a Kung Fu cockroach t-shirt? I want one.
that's
I feel like people's initial thing would be like, ugh, but what?
Believe it or not, right now, with all the technology, this is the time and the place for it. When you look at it, it's gonna take you away it's gonna take your attention away from the roach part, and you will focus more on the gear, the style, because they got style. You know what I'm saying? They coming with
sure.
style.
Yeah.
So
I'm
and
thinking of Ninja Turtles right now. I just watched that last night, actually.
really,
Yeah.
yeah, it's better than Ninja Turtles. Trust me, I guarantee you it's better. The storyboard is excellent. Um, it does has a lot of spirituality in it. You know, it really does, especially about faith.
Yeah, it's got those layers I was talking about.
Yes, absolutely. And I'm showing from when he was like, uh, I forgot the proper terminology for the roach when there's a little baby, but it's just a baby roach. Then he's an adolescent. But man, when he get that full adult, oh man.
I'm going to be honest with you, Chris. You're both intriguing me and grossing me out at the same exact time because I'm thinking of like cartoons and ninjas, and then I'm also thinking about like actual roaches, and it's just I'm conflicted with feeling right now.
But it's pretty cool, and I'm actually working on I'm actually working on the book, and I'm actually working on the T-shirts. The guys at the Lions Den right up the street from here. Are you familiar with them?
I've heard of the Lions Den, but I mean I don't know what they've done or whatever.
Well, they do T-shirts and they do all type of graphics, whatever you need. They real cool guy, man. Real cool guy. As a matter of fact, the one of the guys named Matt, real good guy. So they take care of all your, graphic design, all your needs, anything, dealing with printing and stuff. Yeah, he's working on some stuff, some product for me. So in December, on December the 5th in Fairfield, there's an event that will be taking place and I will be part of it. So I will have some of my, my artwork, really just prints, some of my artwork and my t-shirts out there.
Okay, cool. What's the event coming up? What's
It's actually for vendors. This young lady, she just put together a huge event and it's actually, for vendors. She would have different vendors. She solicited different vendors to come out there with their products or whatever they want to sell and set up. It would be from 10 to until 3.
God, you got so much. I feel like it would be exhausting to be you. You do so much stuff, and you got so much stuff just flowing around in the old brain of yours. All these ideas and creations, and wow.
Really, to be honest, that's just my makeup. They're just like, a lot of people be like, man, I couldn't be a woman. They were, they actually give birth or whatever. But isn't that makeup?
Yeah, I feel like God poured extra caffeine in your recipe. Oh man,
That's awesome.
that's really cool, man. You're a very interesting person. I'm so glad that we
I
got you on the
appreciate
show
that.
today. I want to get to the part of the show where I get a little bit deeper. You saw this with your son, but Mr. Washington, Chris, what do you wrestle with in life? What are some of the things, some of the evil monsters in your closet that you fight with on a day-to-day basis as a man, as a guy of faith, as an artist, as just a human being? What are the things that you fight with every day and how you trying to beat them, man?
My biggest fight, my big, like I was saying earlier, the thing that I wrestle with the most is accepting what God said about me. When he said, "You're my son." And some days I don't feel like I'm his son. Some days I don't feel like I hear his voice.
Why is it that some days you don't feel like you are his son?
Well, it's just like a natural relationship. Like for instance, if if I'm not talking to my son, if I'm not talking to Chris on a daily basis, or if I call him and if he don't answer, or if I reach out to him, he's too seem like he's too busy, or I haven't heard from him, you know, in my mind, just being a natural human being, you're thinking like, okay, did I offend him or something? Did I say something, to him, or did I do something that I did, don't know about? And for me, my life is God. I love my kids, I love my family, but to know and understand me, my life is God. And the reason I say that because, see, for a lot of people, God is this, God is that, God, there is no God, or God don't exist. They think we're all there is. But when you walk with God and you experience God on a certain level, and it seemed to decrease or decline or whatever. So now you can't just go in to his presence whenever you feel like it, or you think you can't. You think you're being rejected, or you say like you might. It used to be a time when I would pray. The moment I pray, sometimes it got so strong and so good, so I can just think about something. I would get results like that. But things have changed, and I had to realize that it's not God that changes me. First of all, but I had to realize that. So now, because of my approach to some things and my views on some things, man, it's like, man, is God gonna answer me today? Or especially if I did something I know that I shouldn't have done, and then I'm like, man, this here took me, further away from God, and now God ain't gonna answer my prayer. Instead of me saying, God never changes. God loved me the same whether I was hot or cold, you know. But because of I'm a human being, I begin to wrestle with that. I don't care what Chris do; he always gonna be my son. There's nothing that Chris can do to elevate himself to be my son, or there's nothing he can do to decrease or stop being my son. And there's nothing that he can do that's gonna alter my love for him. You know why? Because he's my son. He's not gonna change me. He's not gonna change my mind. You know what I'm saying? Because he's mine. He's my son. And a lot of time I wrestle with that. Sometimes it's just kind of hard for me to believe and receive a love like that. I give you, let me give you this. When I was in Iraq, the most profound message God gave me that I ever taught in my life. And it was, for God so loved the world. I don't care. Most people that not even Christians or not even in God or whatever, right? But they know that scripture, right? John 3:16, for God so loved the world that he
gave his only begotten son.
Right.
Yeah.
See, and I did that for a reason because everybody pretty much know that. God had me because I struggled for a long time to believe that God would use or choose somebody like me because you had to know me, little knot-ahead kid growing up in the projects, all these siblings and, just running the streets of Bessemer and people trying their best to demise who you are, um, put you down and say your demise your value, devalue you as a person or a human being and stuff. Just went through a lot of that stuff. So I was like, man, you're talking about God. Why would he choose or call somebody like me, right? One day, God gave me this message, and he said, for I so love the world. And I heard that coming throughout, because I used to be religious first before I became a son or a child of God. And I was like, okay, I know John 3:16, for God so loved the world. God told me, he said, slow up. He said, for God so loved the world that he gave. He said, slow up. For God so loved. He said, stop. I said, what are you trying to say? He said, go again. For God so. He said, stop. Have you ever thought about why he put that word so in there? Because he broke it down to me what that word so mean. That word so meant in spite of, irregardless to, no matter what. And the way he broke it down to me was like, okay, but God, he's bad. So, but God, he done committed adultery. So, but God, he's a thief.
So
God, they committed what you call that, abortion. She killed somebody, murder.
So
And he showed me because he tied that into the scripture in Luke with the prodigal son, when he never stopped looking for his son. And then not only that, when he was showing me grace never stopped. It's always still expecting you to come back, because the prodigal son did what? He left home, wasted his goods by partying, right? But the Bible said he went and did what? He went and fed somebody a hog. Have you ever, come on, we from the South. Have you ever smelt a hog pen?
Ugh, yeah. Yuck.
Okay, so think about this. That was the lifestyle that boy was living, feeding the hogs, and he came to himself, said he was coming back. But he came back stripped. He was coming back stripped, and he was filthy, still smelling. The Bible never showed me that he got clean. It just said he came to his senses and said, I'm going back home. And the father stopped that boy a far ways off. From me to Matt or Chris is not, it doesn't register as a far off, right? So he ran all the way to that boy, and the Bible said he hugged him and he embraced him in the condition that he was. That's the word. Where he's stinking. So he been hanging with the pig. So he smelled like the hog.
So
now he restored that boy right there. Told him, he said, now he called his servants. He said, now y'all put a robe on him, put a ring on him, because he was restoring him back to his state. And he brought him back because he didn't want the people to see his son stripped in that condition. He wanted the people to see his son the same way he left home. That's what love would do. So when God showed me that, that helped my wrestle. That, because I still wrestle sometimes. Like, man, God, am I good enough to carry this message? I mean, I've been thinking, I've been thinking about this. I've been thinking about doing this, or I said this wrong. So here it is. I'm wrestling. You know what I'm saying? I'm wrestling because I know better. I know I shouldn't be talking about people. I shouldn't be backbiting. We overlook those. We want to look at the big sin like, oh, you're homosexual. That's big. Oh, God gonna get you. And it's crazy. And here it is. I got all these other flaws, but I want to judge somebody else because they might have one or two, but not God. He said, so that's what helped me with my wrestling. That's what helped me make it through. I'm not, and I don't mean this in a disrespectful way. I love Chris, but I don't hang my well-being or anything based off how he feel about me or what he say, because he's a human being too. He might be feeling a certain way about me because of what he think in his mind. And he can be 100% wrong. What if I allow that to affect me? I can't do it. So I had to get my thermostat, set it on pleasant, and I'm going to leave it there. You understand what I'm saying? So now, dealing with God, once he showed me, Chris, I love you in spite of. So much. In spite of whatever you do or however you are. He said, it has nothing to do with you. It's everything to do with me being loved. So guess what? Technically, I don't have to wrestle. But because I'm natural, I'm going to sometimes, right? Right. So when I don't, my biggest wrestling is I'm wrestling with myself because I want to walk. I want to walk in such a way to whereas I can minister with my oral and I only use word if I have to. That's my biggest wrestle because I did it before. You know what I'm saying? I did it before. And I'll leave this with you. This morning we had a teaching. It was on identity. Most of us as believers, we don't know our true identity. We associate ourselves with what we have and what other people say or who other people say we are. They tried the same thing with Jesus. Jesus said, I come in the image of my Father. So he was able to do the same thing his Father did, right? He was able to do the same thing God did. Then he gave us the same spirit that God gave him. So we can look and be transformed into the image of his dear son, right? So now we should be able to look and act and talk and sound and walk just like Jesus. How many of us actually do that? Not many. I'm just being real with you. So people have the ability to deny us. You know why? Because they can deny Jesus because we don't have that true image of Jesus. There's a lot of crazy people out here saying a lot of different things, and they sound enticing. And actually, a lot of them sound better than the Christians, to be honest with you. But what if, when you saw me, everything that Jesus said I'm able to do, I did it? Now you no longer deny me, you're rejecting me. That's a difference. See, as long as I don't show any type of signs, you can deny that's true. But guess what, though? If I'm doing everything that Jesus said I'm supposed to do, and you still say, no, that Jesus ain't real, now you're not denying, you reject. See, the Jews, that's why Jesus got on them so much, because they didn't deny who he was. They saw the miracles. He did everything that God could do. But they said, you still, and they associated what he did with Beelzebub, with the devil. They didn't deny him, they rejected him. That's why he came down on them so hard. And my thing is, I've been coming down on myself so hard because I will look in that spiritual mirror, man, and I don't reflect or haven't been cast in the image of Jesus. It's a real struggle. That's real there.
Whew. Like I got sweaty just listening to that one.
That's real.
That's really great, man. You're obviously your faith is your numero uno in your life, and it helps to it's a catalyst for all the things that you do, obviously. And you're a very strong man in faith, and I applaud you for it. I feel like even if somebody is listening to this or even watching it or something and they don't agree with you, I feel like your level of passion should like expose how important your faith is to you and to other people. And that is a huge testament in itself, all by itself. And it's a really beautiful thing. Chris Washington, you acting up. You acting up on this podcast.
I'm just being who I am. That's Chris Washington.
But man, thank you so much for that. Thank you for sharing that with me and with everyone listening. That was really, really wonderful. It really was. You really are the true definition of an artist. And if anything, the thing that you paint the best is your passion, man. And you do it with your faith. And I tip my hat to you. Tell people how they can get a hold of you or see your art or follow your mission in life. Go ahead and plug in any outlets that you got that you'd like for people to check out.
The bigger way right now to follow me is on Facebook, Chris Washington on Facebook, or Instagram with Lazy Artist, Chris Washington on Instagram. I have a lot of stuff, a lot of other different, avenues that I'm working on now. But the way I am before I put it out, I just want to make sure that it's legit. You know what I'm saying? It has to be a certain way. That's where Chris get that from. It has to be right. So that's why I'm still working on some things. And I'm also on Wix.com under my name, Sir Chris the Artist or Chris Washington on Wix.com. And I will be releasing a lot of material, but I still have to say, when guys say it's time, I've been building up for quite a while. I wanted to launch I do my comics, and I put out a couple of samples on Facebook, so you can go on my Facebook page and check that out also. But with this month would be a month of release, like the fall. This would be the month of release. I'm gonna release, a lot of stuff. Whereas I would be sharing more of myself, with the world.
Great. That's awesome. Awesome. Chris, thank you so much for being on the show, sir.
Thank you
Also,
for
thank you
having
so
me.
much for your service to this country
Appreciate
and what
that.
you do, man, your sacrifice. I speak on behalf of everybody else, man. We appreciate what you do. Thank you so much.
And it's people like yourself that make it worth, putting it all on the line. And if I had, had to make a decision to do it, I'd do it all over again.
That's great, man. I salute you, bro. Cheers. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Church Diaries, the Wrestling Diaries. Chris Washington Sr. He's a great guy. He's a great artist. He's a great man of faith. Check him out. As always, check us out too on YouTube. Like, comment, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell for more content we release once a week. Check us out on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and the other podcast platforms you can get your hands on. What do you wrestle with, and how can you beat it? One love.